Hello and welcome to another pattern recognition video featuring simplification patterns. Because I've had a little more than average interest in these simplification pattern videos, I'm doing another one here. So I kind of keep these not too difficult. That way we're working more on pattern recognition and not as much on calculation. So I'll try and do at least 10 puzzles here. You can follow along, pause at any time if you need to think longer. And some of these you may have seen already, so hopefully you'll be able to solve them faster. Here we go. We just had a knight develop up here, adding more pressure to our knight along with the queen bishop battery lined up on our king. Now when you're simplifying down, one of the first things you want to do is count up the material, see if you're ahead or behind in material to start with. So we have what, 7 pawns versus 7, and 4 minor pieces. So things are even at this point as far as material. Now we have to see if we can exchange down. In simplification, you want to exchange down into a winning game if you can. So, wanting to exchange, we look for any checks. We don't have any checks. Now captures. So you want to look for checks, captures, and threats in that order. We could capture here. And then the options are for our opponent to either capture back or capture here with check. So you have to do a little bit of calculation, but I'm thinking we capture here. If they capture, our queen captures. They could capture with check. Our king captures. And then if they go after that knight, our bishop can capture and attack the trapped rook there. So hopefully you got all that. Try and figure that out in your head. And maybe you've seen this puzzle already and you already know the moves. So, and now our bishop captures and the rook is trapped. Okay, on to the next problem. Queen is just pushed forward. So checks, captures, and threats. But before we do that, let's look at the material. We have 4 pawns. They have 4. And we both have queen and rook. All right, our king is kind of open. Their king is pretty open as well. So, what can we do here? Well, if we look at checks first, we have a rook check, but they could just capture. We don't have much of a follow-up after that. And hopefully you saw this check as well. Sometimes retreating moves are harder to see. We could drop back to here, deliver a check. So queen drops back, checking. The rook is also helping cut that king off, trapping it on the back rank. So the options are, when a king is under attack, what can you do? 3 or less options. Capture the attacker, block the attacker, or run. So once our queen moves down here, we can't capture that queen, or black can't capture that queen. So they have to block or run. The queen could block, but then with a check, so we would have to capture. The pawn would capture. Our king could capture, and we would go up by a pawn there. And also our rook would be left attacking these pawns. Now if the king runs, if we go here and the king runs over to here, well then our queen can move up with a check and then deliver a mate. So hopefully you found that. Check, and it looks like the block will be made. But like I said, if that pawn captures, we capture, we go up by a pawn, and also our rook is attacking. So what can be done? could go here, but then the rooks would be traded. If you try and defend this pawn, then we could just step over here and go after that pawn. All right, on to the next problem. We had a check by the enemy queen. Our king drops back. Or actually, their king drops back because we are playing with white. So what do we do next? Now, count up the material. We have, what, 5, 6 pawns versus their 2, so we're ahead by 4 pawns. Even though they have this extra knight, these pawns are going to be very difficult to stop. So I'm thinking we look for those checks first. The queen could check here, here, or here. So hopefully you saw that move, delivering a check. And if the king moves, then we could pick off the queen. The king would have to capture, and then our pawns could start running up the board. But we have to see, can those pawns really make it? So let's take a look at this. Check. The king moves and defends the queen. Oh, wait, hold on. We go here, knock the queen out. The king captures. And now, if this pawn moves, the knight can block that and also cover that square so the other pawn doesn't want to move or it'll be captured. So let's look at that again. Check, king moves, we take the queen, the king recaptures. What if we move the other pawn and the knight captures this one? Then that stops us from moving up there. So another option could be to start this pawn running to try and distract the king or the knight. All right, either way, I think it works. So they're not even going to show you anymore, but you know, the king would obviously capture. Then you could start running this pawn up the board. And while this pawn is moving, the knight would have to go over and stop that, you know, as well as this pawn. It would have difficulty stopping these pawns. So capture, we move here. Now the knight could go here. We just keep moving this pawn. And hopefully you get the idea. You can play that out on a board on your own if you want to look at it further. But if not, let's keep it moving. The next problem. All right, we just had a pawn capture. What should we do here? Count up the material. 3, 7 pawns for white, 7 for black, 2 minor pieces. So material is even. Better make sure I counted correctly. I made a mistake in one of my videos, and a viewer kindly told me that I needed to learn how to count, which, you know, he was right. I did need to learn how to count in that video. So once again, pawns are even. Material is even. The obvious move would be to just go ahead and capture that, attacking the queen. The queen captures, our rook captures. And then what? We just go up a pawn. And they don't even have to capture, but we would be ahead material there. Am I missing something? That looks like the easy way. Is there something tricky going on here? And sometimes you can get in trouble if you overthink things, which I do that sometimes. All right, capture. The queen doesn't have to capture. I mean, usually you want to avoid peace trades if you go ahead like that. Excuse me. You want to avoid peace trades when you're behind. So once white captures here, black probably does not want to trade queens and would have to retreat that queen. But then we have this threat as well. We could attack the knight, and the knight is helping defend that bishop, so that could be a problem. So now we're just ahead by a pawn, but there's also this threat of chasing that knight, going after the bishop, or just doubling the rooks up as well. All right, next problem. We have a queen under attack by the rook here. Okay. What should we do here? Well, if we're trying to simplify down, well, before we do that, count up the material. 5 pawns versus, let me make sure I counted correctly, 5 versus 6. Our opponent is ahead by 1 pawn. The rest of the material is even, but the queens are both under attack. So we're behind by a pawn. That means we need to do, if we're going to simplify down, we need to make sure that we gain material in the process. So we could capture, if they capture our queen, then we can go after, okay, so we're going to take the queen. If they take our queen, we capture their rook. If they take our bishop, then we get their knight. So we'll gain material in this process. And now they have this knight under attack as well. So if that knight runs, it gives us time to retreat our bishop. Okay, 5 more problems to go. A pawn is just pushed forward. What can we do here? That pawn is threatening to capture and then promote. Material, 5 pawns for white, 4 for black. So we're already ahead by a pawn. We have these 2 dangerous pass pawns over here. Do we just capture? Probably the best thing to do, instead of capturing with the pawn, there might be a better move to get that pawn. So see if you can figure it out. Pause if you need more time. If not, we probably want to capture this way, because that forks the king and the queen. Forcing a trade, the queen will have to capture, then our pawn can recapture. So capture with check. Queen is forced to capture. Our pawn captures, and that prevents the king from coming over here. Of course, the king is probably going to want to go over here and try and stop these pawns. So capture, capture, and that's as far as it goes, because if the king has to run over to this side of the board to stop these pawns, our king can move around, try and get up in the position and pick these pawns off. But if we look at the square of the pawn here, if he goes there, we have this square of the pawn. If you're not familiar with this, it's a good way of seeing if your pawn can make it to promotion before the opponent can grab it. So if the king moves here, he's outside of the square. That means this pawn can start running up the board and promote. So, and if you need a good example, I can just show you. So, let's see. We just captured. Black would go here. We go here. He goes over. Pawn moves. We go up, over. He ends up there, and he's too far away to stop that pawn. All right, 4 more problems to go. What do we have here? Knight just captured. Okay. Oh, because our queen, well, the queen is under attack by the knight now as well, but the rook is already covering it, so we could just capture. Oh, but the problem is, if we capture here, rook can capture with check. If we take, then the queen will be unprotected. So, maybe we capture first, pinning the rook to the king. If they capture, so rook takes, rook takes. Now we can go after their queen and then have time to pick off their knight. So capture. Oh, they don't like that. Hold on. What did I do wrong? Okay. Let's take a second look at things. Oh, maybe we just trade the queens off first. All right. Yeah, that's probably, yeah, okay. Honestly, I'm kind of tired today. And it showed in that, what was I thinking? The knight is attacking our queen, so we have to move the queen, obviously. Oof. Okay. So here, there was a capture. We're in check. We just pick that off, and then we end up with that knight. So we're just ahead there by a bishop. Okay, 3 more to go. Let me try and get through this. I hope I'm not putting you to sleep. Obviously, I'm falling asleep myself. Okay. What do we have here? Look at the material count. 6 pawns versus 6. 3 minor pieces apiece. All right, so we're even. Now, I would say the simple move is it to just go after that. If the queen captures, we capture. All right, is it that easy? Or am I missing something else here? Capture, queen captures, rook captures. Oh, but then can that bishop trap us? Trap our rook up there? I think we'll be all right. Or will I get this one wrong? That looks to be the move. Okay, I guess it was that simple. You just grab the extra bishop, and you know, if they trade queens, well, now we're ahead by that extra bishop. Okay, 2 more problems to go. All right, this is kind of an end game position here. Black has just moved. Their king was in check. Now, black is up by what here? 4 pawns versus 2. So we need to really look at this. If we try to simplify down by capturing, they capture, then we push our pawn forward. They won't be able to stop that. They could try and move one of their pawns. Oh, and this one looks familiar, so maybe you've seen this one before. But our queen, or excuse me, our pawn will queen and be able to come down here and stop theirs. So capture, and we'll have a promotion with check. That's why that king moved first. So now we have a queen. And if the pawn moves here and it's protected by the other one, we do have the option of getting in behind it and then getting down here to stop these. All right, on to the final problem. Rook has just captured. So look at the material. We're all even. But what is going on here? Okay. Notice how our king is attacking the rook. Their king is defending. And also, we have the white pawn 3 moves away from promoting. The black pawn is 4 moves away, so white will promote first. If only we could get our rook out of the way of our pawn and trade off the rooks. And hopefully that'll help you solve the problem. So pause if you need more time. If not, I think we're going to try moving over here with check. If the king moves and does not capture, we just pick off the rook and we're protected by our king. So after we check here, the king captures, our king captures, and then the pawns start running. So I thought he would have just ran his pawn down the board, but ours will get there. Okay. Well, I hope you enjoyed these 10 pattern recognition puzzles dealing with simplification. That seems to be a more popular theme where you practice simplifying down into winning end games or winning, even middle games sometimes. All right. Well, feel free to leave comments, like, and subscribe to support the channel. Thank you for watching and have a super chess day.